guys, it's 2 o'clock, so we're going to call the meeting to order. Thanks, everyone, for being here today. Any additions to the agenda in front of you? I've been told that we need to discuss name tags, so I've added that to the list of things we need to do today. Anything else that anybody has? Okay, approval of previous minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, we get a second? Okay.
I met your husband.
All right, any board member comments? Dave, Jerry, Ruth? Anybody? Nobody have any comments? Okay. Tom, you have anything to say?
Yeah, I just want to give everybody a brief update regarding the Trafalgar fire site. Well, I don't know if we can call it the fire site anymore because there's no more fire there. But they are completely demobilized at this point, so we are done with phase one. We have 60 days, according to the executive order, to submit our plans for phase two to ADEQ, and at that point we'll determine what occurs. We should be hydroseeding the site within the next week to 2 weeks. But very pleased that phase one is completely finished. And I brought a water sample. This is actually taken from the toe of the site where all the water flows through. You can take a look at it for yourself. We're having ADEQ in all probability will require us to do water sampling on a monthly basis for the next year to 2 years, which we fully understand is important. We'll continue to test Lake Ann and Lake Brittany probably for 1 or 2 more months. But even at the height of fighting the fire, they didn't find anything. So it probably doesn't make sense to continue to spend that money. So we'll do a couple more months and then we'll stop that. But very pleased with that. And also at the Highlands Stump Dump, those plans have been approved by ADEQ. And we hope to have that site remediated by the end of this year. Okay. So.
I have a question.
Sure.
Will you be taking public input on what will be done with the restoration of that site or how it might be repurposed?
Remediating the site is we're doing what ADEQ tells us to do. With regards to repurposing, I've asked if we can put trees down there to reforest the area, and they have not given me an answer yet on that. We also thought that in the Recreation Committee we've talked about a site for a potential archery range. That's a nice open area. Could we potentially use it for that? I haven't received an answer on that either. We do know that they will require us to put a deed restriction on the land, so no homes can ever be built there or a condo, so 20 years from now when everybody has forgotten about the fire, they won't be able to do anything like putting up a home or something to that nature. But we're really at, I don't want to say the mercy, but we must follow the guidance of ADEQ regarding the future use of that location.
Can we make suggestions or other things to propose for that land?
Sure. But I think it's a little bit early.
Okay.
We've just finished phase one. I mean, the equipment was just taken off site today.
Yeah.
We have 60 days to prepare our plans to fully close the site. And then after that is really when we can look forward to the possibility of repurposing it.
Okay.
They may come back and say, no, you can't. What are you, crazy? You can't put an archery range. I don't know what they're going to say. Or they may come back and say we can't have trees there. It's hard to say. We do have to vegetate it with grass and so forth, so that the site is stable so it doesn't wash away. But I don't think it's going to wash away anyways because we've had a tremendous amount of rain lately and it hasn't gone anywhere anyways. So
How big is that site?
I think it's 5 acres. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's 5 acres. So, so we have thought about potential future uses, but
And that's with the Recreation Committee?
we really haven't talked about, we've talked a lot at the Recreation Committee about an archery range site. I was out there and I was like, wow, you know, I was kind of dreaming what this site could be turned into, and that's why I started asking questions, kind of similar to what you're asking, you know, hey, what can we do? Is it reasonable? And I haven't received an answer yet.
So I guess my question is, why all the restrictions on what future use? If the site's been cleaned up, I really hadn't found anything that was really bad in there. Why are they being so restrictive on future uses? Is that because they don't want something like, I could see them saying you can't have a stump up there again, but if somebody wanted to build a recreation complex there in 5 years, what would, I mean, I don't
think I'm the right person to answer that question. I can only tell you what I do know is that I've been told we'll be required to put a deed restriction. John has his hand up in the back there.
That property doesn't belong to the POA, does it not? Can we use it for anything?
The part of the executive order with ADEQ is the POA is required to try to gain ownership of the land. We have had conversations with Browns Tree Service, and it is possible we may be able to negotiate a methodology of the POA getting ownership of the land.
Regain is an interesting word since it was never the POA's property.
If I said regain, that would be incorrect. We've never owned there. I thought I said gain or get ownership, but if I said regain, that would have been a misstatement.
Interesting.
So a little bit early, but you know, we're definitely open-minded. We definitely want to make sure that it doesn't, it's something that we can turn my goal is to turn a negative into a positive. And if we can turn it into something that's of great use to the community and is beautiful, then that would be the best outcome after a challenging situation.
Okay, I mean, that's my thinking, and I just wondered,
Yeah.
how much energy is going into that.
Right now, the focus is the focus was remediating the site, is stabilizing the site and getting it ready so that we can transition to phase 2 and not get ahead of ourselves.
Sounds good.
That's everything.
That's all you got?
That's all I got.
All right. Okay, with that, I'll turn it over to John. John?
So it's for the month of June, of course, June, July, we're always super busy. It's been lots of general maintenance from the maintenance guys, trees down, that sort of thing from all the storms. We've returned loads of kayaks that have blown off people's docks and that sort of thing. We've still got a few that we still have possession of that we haven't been able to return to the owners, but most have been returned because we had good stickers on those boats. The Avalon dock cables have broken because of strong wind, so some of the supports are broken at the moment. If you're over there right now, you'll see that dock is swaying back and forth. We're going to get those fixed in the morning, so we're just praying that they're going to hold out through the night. So those will be fixed in the morning. We've been getting a lot of reports of light vandalism, and I used the word mischief the other day at several facilities. Tanyard Creek's one. I think London has gotten a little light mischief. It's just things like people stealing toilet paper, just leaving general messes. So if you guys see any of that sort of activity or see any messes in bathrooms, just report it to us. And that way we can get it taken care of as fast as possible. Most everybody's been on top of it, but there's still been a couple times where we're just finding out about it by surprise. For the month of June, the Lake Rangers made 4,228 contacts. That includes boat contacts and by truck. Our previous June was 2,221, and then last May was 3,049. So we increased by over 1,000 contacts month to month. For boat hours last month, they put in 105 boat hours. If you guys remember, we still didn't have all the lake rangers quite up during the month of June, so those will increase in July, of course. They made 226 boat contacts. Most were on Loch Lomond, followed by Lake Windsor and Lake Ann, as you can imagine. Lake Ann did have quite a few more boaters last month than is normal.
So, can I ask a question on the contacts real quick?
Sure.
Sorry to interrupt you, but when you talk about the contacts,
Hmm?
do you have a breakdown of what those contacts are? I'm gonna, in my 5 minutes, I'm gonna bring up a couple of issues. So I just wanna understand, you're touting all of these contacts, but have you got a breakdown of what those contacts are?
Yes.
Is
so
that
we've got-
reckless boating? Is it just say hello? Is it to,
There's a lot more detail that we do.
Go ahead.
yeah, sorry, Frank Kennedy,
Right.
Loch Lomond, Dock 64.
There's a lot more, as far as a land contact, there's a lot more details that we collect. We're going to have an interaction with just about everybody on land because we're just wanting to make sure that they're supposed to be there. On the water, the contacts usually occur, we're checking registrations, or if somebody's doing something they shouldn't necessarily be doing, and those are reflected in ranger reports. That Bob could probably answer a few more of those questions but most of that information is reflected on a ranger report whenever those get turned in. I just give kind of a general overview whenever we're talking at the meeting to not kind of get bogged down in a lot of the details. But as far as like wake violations, those are all definitely noted, especially the last couple of years, because it's been of special interest to us to just see if those sorts of things are on the rise and who's doing those sorts of violations to see if we're getting repeat offenders. Over on the lake ecology side of things, we still continue to pull sawguy from our sawguy pond. Of course, they're getting larger now. We're getting 2 to 3 inch fish. We pulled another 5,000 out, and we'll continue this through probably to the fall whenever we start to drain those ponds. We removed several sections of the weed beds at Tyree and Stony Kirk, and I'm talking about the emergent weed beds in the bank fishing areas. They were getting a little heavy. We just wanted to make it more accessible to our bank fishermen over there, make it a little easier to use. And as you guys, I know several people have noted it, vegetation on Loch Lomond has still been an issue this year. It's been a whole lot less than last year. Part of this has been because the lake has stayed bloomed, probably in a large part because of all the rain that we've gotten and the flushed in nutrients just from the landscape. So the lake has stayed bloomed, hasn't allowed a whole lot of sunlight to get to the bottom of the lake to grow those weeds out. And then the other part of that is our management methods, the grass carp that we put in last year and this year, they're starting to, or especially last year's fish, they're starting to mature and really do some good in the lake. And then if you guys remember last year, we were reporting hammering vegetation with chemicals last year at just about every meeting that we had. So we hope we did ourselves some good last year. We know that we do have a new type of vegetation that we hadn't seen. So part of our problems last year was getting the chemical correct because the vegetation looks the same, but it's really not the same, and the management methods are not the same. But so far, we'll keep our fingers crossed. A lot of our vegetation issues have been not quite as bad as they were the previous 2 years. And then other than that, I'll let Bob talk a little bit about the 4th of July. He was out on the water. We had a good year this year.
Hello? Are we? No?
It's on, the light's
It's on,
on.
Bob. It's on. You can hear you.
It's on.
Oh, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good, okay. I'm Bob Walker. I'm the senior lake ranger both in age and longevity. I've been doing this for 8 years.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. On July 3rd, that's naturally when the fireworks went off, and excuse my back here. July 3rd, from 7 to 10 p.m., we had a total of 78 boats on the lake. We made 223 contacts. We had 7 lake rangers on duty, 3 fire department rescue people, and they are on our boats in case someone slips off and decides not to swim, so they can rescue them. We had no issues. Everybody did very well on the lakes. There were no incidents with alcohol or any kind of abusive behavior. The only issue that we had was parking. Parking was at a premium. But aside from that, there were absolutely no issues at all at the lakes. And that was on July 3rd. So we did very well with the 7 lake rangers. We had 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening, and 3 for the fireworks. So there were a total of 7 on duty for July 3rd to take care of the lakes. Let's see. We now have 8 lake rangers assigned to the lakes and parks. And I'll pass this around. You can see by this schedule, we are extremely, we have a lot of lake rangers doing a lot of stuff to keep the membership happy and keep them all in harmony with one another. And that's the most lake rangers we've ever had since I've been here. So you can see that we patrol the lakes, every single lake, at least once a day, including all the no-wake lakes. We have a special boat that we tow around to the no-wake lakes. So there's a schedule for a 2-week period. Any questions so far before I get into the breakdown? I want to answer this gentleman's question behind me. To answer your question, sir, I think you were that way. Our Lake Ranger weekly report, which I compile, we break down how many members we have contacted, actually went up and actually asked for their ID cards or their photo ID or their guest cards. We have members, guests, and ones that we remove. And we do that on every single lake, and I'll pass this around also. We also have lake contact boating reports for each lake that we actually go up and greet a boater or give them a rule violation or educate them into the proper use of their boats. And the lake patrol time, we actually log our times on the lakes in hours and minutes on every single lake every day. So I'll pass this around. You can see what that does. Any questions at all that I may answer? Yes, ma'am.
Just overall, in your 8 years of doing this, what have the trends been? I mean, what's been growing in terms of the particular contacts that you make, or what's been tapering off? What do you see?
Well, luckily, we haven't seen anything tapering off. So we've seen a lot of growth in the membership and invited guests that members invite on the lakes to enjoy our amenities here. And we do see a fairly large number of people that don't belong here that we ask them to either purchase a lake use permit or to leave.
Has that grown or lessened?
It's seasonal. July and August, it's quite a bit. And then when school gets rev back up, then we see a slowly decline. But for the most part, it's stayed pretty steady. Anybody else?
So overall, pretty quiet July 4th holiday weekend.
Very quiet.
Not a lot
Very,
of instances.
no, absolutely not. And I attribute that to the Lake Ranger staff that we have. There are 7 of the most dedicated, well, 8, including myself, 8 of the most dedicated people that I've seen in my 8 years of doing this. They've been very, very well, very helpful.
Any other questions, guys?
Anybody else?
Well, thank you. We
Okay.
appreciate.
Thank you.
Appreciate all you do.
Thanks, Bob. And that's all.
You're done? Okay. One thing that I'll mention, Tom, is that a couple of my neighbors attended the fireworks and I guess had boats at the marina. And I guess the only complaint I heard, everything was very well organized and did a fantastic job, but bathroom issues. So there was one porta potty in the parking lot, and I guess they tried to go in at Lake Point, a couple of people, and they were turned down to use the bathroom. And that might be a correction of errors for next year.
We'll take her.
Yeah. So that was the only negative of everything. And I didn't attend, but I just have a lot of neighbors who were there, and just wanted to mention that. Okay, so the next thing on new business is we have a new board member, a new committee member, Jason Adams. Jason, we want to welcome you, and you, by all means, you can come sit amongst the group now. So, do you want to say a few words about yourself, just to kind of let us know who you are, and
My name is Jason Adams.
you can step up to the mic if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. My name is Jason Adams. I've been a member here for just a short while, but I have been a part of the lakes and been involved with them. I've fished them before and just love this community and wanted to serve and help the lake committee and do what I can.
All right, well, we look forward to having you on the board, and by all means, pull up a seat. Welcome. So with that being said, now that Jason, so we have a full contingent of board members, we need to select a chairperson, a vice chairperson, and a secretary for the next 12 months. I'm willing to serve as chairperson. If anybody wants to serve, I'm happy to let them do that. I've talked to Kelly. I think he would be willing to serve again if anybody wants to do that. We can have a vote on that. Secretary, Paul, you have done a phenomenal job of recording the minutes and putting them out in a timely manner. So,
Do I get a raise in pay?
yeah, we can give you a 10% raise. So I'm opening the floor now for nominations for chairman. Does anybody have any interest in that job, or?
If you guys are willing to serve, I would nominate all three of you for another year.
I don't, sorry, go ahead, you had something to say.
I was just going to make a motion that we accept your
Okay.
offer of working for the next year.
Beat you to it.
And Paul, I don't think anybody's jumping at the opportunity to be the secretary, so we do appreciate all you do, and I know
Well,
it's,
thank you,
I know
thank you.
you have to pay attention and write things down and
Try to.
try to keep what you want to say in mind as you're writing down, so I know how hard that can be from time to time. So the other thing that I was asked is name tags. Who amongst the members of the committee does not have a name tag?
Can you take a formal vote on that,
Oh, yes, we can have a formal vote?
if you could, please?
I didn't know, I wasn't familiar with that. Okay, so we do need to have a formal vote on the nomination, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, thank you.
Well, you were speaking about name tags. I wonder, it would be great if we could sometime during the meeting go around the room and have people identify themselves, who they are and why they're here and things like that. Whatever the
And you're talking
opportunity-
about board, you're talking about committee
Well-
members or people in the room?
But primarily, I guess, the committee here as well as the POA people.
Okay.
And I guess, each one of these folks that have a mission
Okay.
too, presumably.
Well, why don't you start, and we'll go ahead and do that right now.
Okay, well, I'm Paul Bickford and secretary and happy to be part of the committee.
I'm Jerry Hover, the POA board member, as a liaison to the committee.
I'm Grace Turley. I think I've been on the committee, a year and a half, something like that. And I'm here because I'm really interested in the overall health of the lakes, for the critters that live therein, so.
Jason Adams, I'm the new guy here.
I'm Tom Judson of the POA.
Marvin Macedo, been on the committee, I believe this is my 5th year, and interested in the lakes and the well-doing of the lakes. Also a member of the Fly Tires, so we kind of work in conjunction with this committee.
Kelly Austin, vice chair, and I think I've been on the committee about 5 years, and same, just interested in the lakes and fishing and overall health of the lakes.
Matt Champagne, chairman, been on the committee for six or so years, I can't remember exactly.
Wow.
But enjoy being part of the discussion and being just in the know about what's going on in the lakes and that sort of thing. So,
Lloyd Walker, I, like these guys, I think second year, the second term, so 5 years. And first 3 years I served as secretary, so thanks, Paul. Appreciate you, man. My interests are lake ecology and recreation. I actually studied fisheries biology and lived here for 8 years in Bella Vista.
back table?
David Brandenburg, board liaison.
I'm Jerry Barron, both POA board and liaison.
Okay.
POA.
All right, it gets everybody in the room except for the guests, and we'll give them a chance to speak here in a minute. So, show of hands for anybody, a committee member who does not have a name tag. I was informed that we should have name tags. Is that like everybody?
Like
All right.
everybody.
Tammy, everybody needs a name tag. That's easy. So the next thing on the agenda for today is, and Tammy was nice enough to make copies for everyone, but is 2020 capital budget recommendations. I don't think those have to be completed until
August 16th.
August 16th. So we do have this meeting and probably, well, next meeting. So I've taken what we had a discussion on last week and taken the old file and tried to update, taken out what was accomplished, and put in, what you guys have given me from the last meeting. So I guess my suggestion would be to read over this if you haven't already done so, and then submit your ideas to me so that I can add it to the list. And again, we kind of did this in a format of kind of must-dos. What are the critical things we'd like the lakes biologists and what have you continue to maintain and do, and then kind of some nice-to-do things that we've only got 3 on there right now, but if anybody has any additional input on this list, I guess now would be the time, or if you have a thought between now and the next meeting, let me know and I can add it to the list. Does anybody have anything today that they're particularly, go ahead, Tom.
Now, I don't want to be the killjoy, but we're going to have a fairly tight budget this coming year as a result of the expenditure with the fire. So just recognize it's going to be a tight year.
And I when I sent this out, I think I did say that it would be, because you said it last month, so. I mean, I've tried to list just some of the basic things that Rick and John do, some of the basic, keep up the maintenance of the lakes, the fertilization programs, the rangers, trout stocking, fish breeding. I know one of the things that we talked about was the POA needs a new truck and a new boat this year, and I think there was some discussion with the Fly Tires about potentially doing something along those lines. So again, we kind of went through all of this last week, or last meeting. So if anybody has any further suggestions, if you have anything today, that's fine. If not, we can continue to kind of work on it between now and the next meeting.
I have some thoughts.
Okay.
They're not necessarily capital items, but I think it's probably something that falls in the category of, in the committee in partnership with the Lakes and Parks staff, John, and everybody that works. You guys are rangers, right? And on this, I see things where, maintenance and repair of the POA-owned docks. I see, taking care of the ramps and those things, right? I'm thinking about, we have, I believe, a gap where the aesthetics of some of the docks that are allowed, and they're allowed because nobody takes enforcement against them, right? But there are some pontoon docks that are not in accordance with what the architectural committee would allow, right? And so I'm bringing this up because I see them on my lake, and I know all y'all see them on your lakes. People go out there and they build whatever they want, and nobody stops them. And so I think that we need to do something to help mitigate that and make it matter, right? Because if we don't have rules that matter, I don't know what we have. And so it's not a complaint, it's not a rant, it's a realization. And I think we need to, think about the activities that we're doing and sponsoring and how those matter for the future of the community. Because if we don't do something, and I know I built a dock, it cost me several $1,000s, and I got a permit, and I went through the whole process. I know what it is, right? But I also see things out there where I can guarantee you they don't. And so what is the compliance? What is the accountability? You know, and does anything that we do here matter? And so I'm just throwing it out there. I've brought it up before, right? You guys know that I've brought this up before. And I think that, you know, as we're talking about how we spend our money, right? Maybe there's not a lot of money here. So Tom, I hear you, right? It's gonna be a tight year, but we could collect some information and bring it back to the committee just by the activities that the boat rangers or the lake rangers are already doing, and say, hey, at this location on this lake, I see something that's questionable, right? So those are some thoughts.
One way that we've been kind of addressing exactly what you're talking about, of course, it's only been on a few lakes so far, is as we have rotated a lake into a drawdown period, we go out, we do a dock inspection. We have an entire checklist of electrical things and that sort of thing. And then we turn that over to the property owner in the hopes that they will, in some cases, it's just been, hey, we didn't know our dock was in so bad a shape, or we didn't know we were out of compliance, things like styrofoam. Some people just didn't know that their dock floats were made out of styrofoam and they're not supposed to be, or that sort of thing. So as the lakes have come on to the drawdown cycle, we've started doing a lot. We spend a lot of time just before we start drawing down to inspect docks, let people know, hey, you're out of compliance, and then let them have enough time to line up a contractor to get things back in good shape.
Does it appear to work, or is there, in some cases, need to be some additional influence? And could we help?
As always, most people are going to comply. Most people don't want, a bad dock. They don't want to be the ire of their neighbors. Of course, there are some people that are just going to, fight you tooth and nail at every step. But for the most part, it's been great. Everybody, especially people that just didn't know or just never really thought about it, they've, been very forthcoming with getting things fixed.
It's good to hear, and I remember you guys talking about that. I don't know if there's something that could be brought back here, so that we can go over it and actually, have a discussion about it. Some of the things that I see are, I'm wondering if they've been abandoned, It's like that the house is sold. It was a big steep hill, and those people were, once upon a time used it, they aged out, and now somebody else owns it, and they've never been down there, that sort of thing. Just a guess, but.
Does a dock condition fall more under the ACC or under the city?
Under the city, but it is kind of, it's kind of a weird situation where it's on our property, it's out on top of the water, it belongs
I
to
just wonder if there are
somebody else.
people ever get out on the lakes and go around and look at them like they do on the streets. The
Up
ACC will
until-
come by and tell me my trash can isn't in the right place or whatever.
Up until he retired, we did have an inspector that rode along with us to go do that, and that'll be something we'll be trying to strike a new relationship with a new inspector to get them to go out with us, if they're willing to do that.
Yep.
We're absolutely willing to have some of those guys out with us to, help us make the right call.
And is that inspector working for the POA or the ACC?
He was working for the city, but he just recently retired, so we'll have to find a new stand-in for him. He'll be a tough replacement, but we will work to find somebody new to have that relationship with.
I think we also have a relatively new guy in the area of code enforcement,
Right.
so that might be useful. Doug is his name, I think.
Does he live on Lake Avalon?
I don't
not
know.
sure.
One of the challenges that we have is in our governing documents, we don't have any fining authority. A lot of communities, if you get out of compliance, you can fine them $50 a day or something that has teeth to it to get their attention. We don't have any of that authority in our governing documents, and that's part of the reason why we partner with the city to try and encourage people along. Unfortunately, we can't rewrite our governing documents.
Do we have documents that people who have docks are, with rules and regulations, like we have our fishing, boating, and water sports rules and regulations, is there a written regulation for people who own docks
Yeah, it's
and
more-
their responsibilities?
It's under the ACC.
It's under the ACC?
Yeah. Yeah, so we don't, that's one of the challenges that we have.
So does the ACC give these people a piece of paper that says, these are your responsibilities, or no?
We have our guys go out and encourage people to comply.
Okay. So there are no written regulations?
Oh, there are,
Oh, there are.
yeah. But we have our people go out to encourage people to comply.
Okay.
Would it be helpful to publish those
Yeah,
regulations?
that's what I was gonna say.
At the beginning of every year, like just on one of the magazines that we put out on a quarterly basis, what have you, just a reminder to everyone,
Yeah.
if you own a dock on the water, here are some things to keep in mind.
Your responsibility.
Your responsibility, be a good citizen, keep your neighbor happy, all of the above. Yeah. I mean, in some cases, it might just be people don't realize it and are not top of mind, to your point. They don't even walk down to the dock. I see a lot of docks the same way. I think the people who live up, there's a long walk down, they're elderly or what have you, they don't go down there. Out of sight, out of mind.
We probably have a database of dock owners, don't we? Don't they register those?
Yeah.
Supposed to have a dock number.
We do, yeah.
Supposed to.
Is
There,
that
there are
city?
some out there that will spring up on you on occasion, but most,
Might be easy to do a targeted mailing to those folks.
right.
I'd love to have a dock number on mine, but the ACC assured me that that was an old thing. So,
Well,
That was an old
it's more for our purposes, the dock numbers are, and that allows us to be able to find you if, it's kind of like your 911 address, we know where to return something.
Let me know what I need to put on.
When I had my boat dock built, they required it, they said they had to have a number.
Yeah. So is that not the case anymore?
It's still required, so I renovated my boat dock and I had to get a permit from the ACC and from the city.
Yes.
Okay.
Do they have to register it every year? Relicense it?
No.
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 It's a one-shot deal, huh?
Correct. I would agree with that.
One point I'd like to make about sticker enforcement on our lake, Rayburn. There was a boat there that had been there with a sticker of 2011 on it. It had been sitting there for at least 3 or 4 years. It's gone now. So it's working. Our reinforcement here is beginning to take effect.
Another idea, not necessarily with docks, but with pontoon boats that have been abandoned, and I think there's a few of those out there. If there's probably a boat company that would agree to take those things and pick them up if they were donated to the, if somebody wanted to get rid of a boat that was no longer used. Is there someone who might just pick it up and either salvage it or recondition it and sell it or do something with it? Because I know there's a lot of pontoon boats that just seem like they never move. They're full of mold and slime and they're just sitting there. And so that might be an idea too, just an idea, just a thought. Okay. Anything else on capital projects that are top of mind right now? Anything that anybody has? And again, this is kind of a working document, so we've got a little bit of time. Okay. Just let me know and we can discuss it again at the next meeting, and if you have anything between now and then, send it to me, please. Okay. So the next thing on the agenda is open forum, and we'd ask guests to limit your comments to 3 minutes. State your name for us, please, so that we can record your name on the minutes of the meeting, and then state your issue or topic that you want to discuss, and if you have any solutions that you might want to recommend. And we're trying to limit your time to 3 minutes so that everyone has a chance to speak. So with that, first guest can get up and.
Hey, only one thing. I'm Steve Curtis. I rented the pavilion at Tyree Park last Sunday. The bathrooms were locked.
Did you have to go?
And I have a 93-year-old lady, and everybody else is over 75. I'm the youngest guy there. Thank you.
So John, what is our policy on the bathroom lockings?
Generally, we do not. There are certain bathrooms that will lock at certain times of the year. Most everything was getting locked right around this holiday because we tend to get a lot of vandalism. We tend to lose quite a few toilets from fireworks and that sort of thing. As you guys can probably imagine, that is our mistake. That bathroom should have been opened back up on a morning and somebody didn't get a memo, so that is our mistake.
Is there if Steve were to run into that situation again, could he call the Lake Ranger and have
Yes.
somebody come out and do that?
Absolutely. Just give us a call, call Lake Rangers, call Membership Services.
I had 2 lake rangers go by. Neither one of them went out on the lake, but they came in and drove around the parking lot and that, and I didn't catch them.
So in the future, but just as an option, you do have the option of calling them, and hopefully that doesn't happen
All
again.
Lakes and Park staff all have keys to those restrooms, and I apologize, they should have been opened back up that morning.
Thanks, Steve.
Actually, at Tyree, we have a kayaking group that goes there once in a while, and each time the restrooms have been locked. So I don't know if that's just an odd aberration. And we were there about, 6 to 7 in the evening.
So have we been locking those extended periods of time, or is,
Only on the, starting on the 2nd of July through, the 3rd through the 5th of July. It's the only times that we lock those restrooms to kind of address any sort of vandalism. Any other time beside that, they should be unlocked. And I believe there's also a porta potty down there, although we don't like to use that. I think there was a porta potty.
No.
No, they looked at
there's also been a number of
I can't find it.
light issues, as I was talking about earlier with vandalism, where we've had to lock restrooms for sanitary reasons, where people have just went in and made a mess. I don't remember Tyree being hit that badly down there. I know London was hit pretty hard for at least a couple of weeks. We probably had an issue with Tyree, but I certainly don't remember it being several evenings. So we'll stay on top of it, check it, and make sure that they're getting opened up like they should be.
Is there anybody else have anything? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Paul Otto, Lake Windsor. I used to be a member of the committee. I haven't been for several years now, but I try to make the meetings when I can. I came in specifically this time to talk with Rick, but he's off for the week. So I spoke with John about a tree that we had come down and wind up in the lake, and they're apparently going to be coming over and taking care of the part of the tree that's in the lake, and I just want to say I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? John?
Hi, my name is John Nettle. I live at 40 Pimlico on Lake Windsor. First one comment as your capital budget. We have 2,800 kayaks registered in Bella Vista, which I believe is close to half the floating stock we have. And if I'm not correct, I'm sure I am correct, our kayak launching ramp count is, it's a 0. Half of our boats, we don't have a kayak launching, or kayaks, and we don't have a kayak launching ramp. If you think about something for your capital budget, it would be a nice group of people to take care of. And second one's for you. That burned up float that I pulled out of the lake is still sitting on my dock since March. It's there because I can't carry it up the stairs.
Do we have a way to know where most of the kayaks are registered, or are enough of those spread out not on lakes?
What was the question? Sorry.
Can we determine which lakes the kayaks are registered on, or do we have a significant number that, people don't live on a lake? And the only
I
reason
would
I'm
think
asking,
at least the largest majority probably don't live on a lake, or at least they
Really?
move
Okay.
around, to different lakes.
the reason for the question was if we're going to entertain something like kayak launch ramps, where would be the most important places to go first?
I can tell you where we tend to get the most complaints between boaters and kayakers because they are competing for the same launch ramp. Granton, obviously, because it's really busy over at Granton. Lake Ann is another big one, just because that lake is really scenic. Those are probably the two biggest that I can think of. And a lot of that is just due to, especially at Granton, in order to take your kayak somewhere where you're not on the boat ramp, you kind of have to go a good ways over. It's gotten better in the last couple of years. I think some of our new kayakers kind of are more up on the etiquette of a boat ramp. It's for people that have never done it before. There's an etiquette you have to kind of follow. I think a lot of people have kind of gotten used to that, so we don't get nearly as many complaints as we used to. But I agree with John. Kayak launch would be great at just about every lake if we can ever get there.
Education is going to be key with kayakers because they haven't owned a boat and it's kind of new to them and they haven't used the launch and they don't know what that etiquette is. We've seen a lot more articles on Facebook and things like that about kayaks and how to be one with the ramps, with the boaters, and just be safe out there. But it might be something that you put in the magazine or something, some article, something to educate.
Kayak ramp etiquette.
Just ramp etiquette.
Or just ramp
and then
etiquette.
Include the
Including
kayak.
kayakers,
Correct.
right.
Because they are boats and they have the right to use the ramps just like, boaters do.
I would agree that the less experienced kayakers, the newer ones, don't know what that etiquette is. Hopefully, for some of us old kayakers, we know those rules and those etiquette rules. But new ones could use additional education. So
I would agree. I've experienced all sorts of things in my days of boating, and I see a lot of different things, and it's always nice when people are cognizant of other people using the ramp and just try to move efficiently, And some people it just seems like they don't have any clue. They're not aware of their surroundings. They're not aware that 3 people are willing to launch. And it doesn't happen often, but it does happen, so.
Well, I thought the Rayburn ramp was a kayak launch that we use for boats, but I wasn't going to go there.
And in all fairness, it's not just kayakers. I mean, we see these sorts of complaints with regular boats too. People park on the ramp, then they're going to get their boat ready, start pulling all their stuff out of their truck, and be on the ramp 15 minutes or something like that. So, in all fairness, it's not just kayakers.
Absolutely.
Everybody could use a dose of etiquette on the boat ramp.
We were out on Windsor the night of the 4th when fireworks were going, and I saw several kayaks out after dark. I guess they didn't know probably weren't supposed to be out there without lights on. But
Kind
there
of
were
dangerous.
4 or 5 at least out there.
Yeah, but,
That's a standard regulation.
yeah, but if you're a 10-foot kayak and somebody's riding out on a motorboat, I'd have a light on. Yeah.
I apologize, Frank Kennedy, Loch Lomond, 64. I'm going to mention about 3 or 4 things. None of them would have been significant except they all happened about the same time, and so the accumulation of all of them got me here tonight. So first of all, do you have a lost and found? This is a lure and stuff. Found on my dock this morning, the string hanging down. The lure was actually on top of my boathouse wrapped around my wind vane. Okay, so if somebody does claim it, I'd like to visit with them about how it got on top of my boathouse wind vane.
He's learning how to cast.
I would say an inexperienced caster.
So this kind of goes to the etiquette thing that I've been talking about, is because there's been several instances recently for me on the lake. I've been on Loch Lomond for 3 years, and this year seems to be the worst so far, and it may be the trend of having more people come in that are just not aware of our etiquette that should be. So this is one. I mean, on top of my vane, on top of my boathouse, that's a little too much.
Was it a windy day?
Pardon?
Was it a windy day?
I don't know, was last night windy?
Yeah.
So it was there this morning when I went out, so it was quite surprising. Also, I went out on my kayak to do a little fishing this morning. Over on one side of the cove, there are some limbs that hang out over the lake. Are fishing hooks permitted, like trot line type things permitted on our lake? I thought they had to all be removed, you know, if they were put in the night before and taken out the next morning. But these are attached to the bush, hanging down with a big hook, and there were a couple along the cove.
They are allowed, as per AGFC regulation. They are supposed to be removed, and we cut them wherever we can find them. Did these have an address on them or a name on them or anything like that? They're supposed to have a name and an address attached to them. What we find often is
I
they do
didn't crawl
not.
in underneath to look at it. I have pictures of the black line hanging down with a hook, and there were a couple of them along the cove.
It's something that we, especially if somebody calls in and asks, hey, are we allowed to do this on the lake? They are allowed to do it. We tell them to be very aware of kayakers and that sort of thing, because it's just plain dangerous to somebody in a
These are big hooks.
kayak.
I took pictures. I mean, these are not, they're like the big hook on this. They are substantial hooks that are hanging down underneath those bushes.
You have 50-pound catfish in that lake.
So all I was asking is that, are they permissible to be there
Yes, yes, you are.
all through the day?
On a limb line, they're supposed to be gone by morning, I believe is the regulation, if I remember correctly. But I can't remember the exact regulation. But at any rate, they should be, they should have that member's name on them, address, that sort of thing, so we can contact them if there's a problem with their lines.
All right. Another thing, a couple of weeks ago, we had a fisherman, and I'll call him a ninja fisherman, because he had the ninja face mask on, came down the cove, went around. I had about 6 to 8 people in the water at the time, and 4 of them were kids under 4 with their parents swimming. He came up down my seawall, came up halfway to my seawall, and threw his line within 10 yards of a person in a float with a baby in the float. And it was right next to my docks. I mean, I wasn't out in the water or anything. Again, an etiquette type of thing. If the fishermen want me to be aware of them with my pontoon when I go by, they don't need to be throwing within 10 yards of people in the water next to my dock. So what should I have done? Because he wasn't very receptive.
So,
Take a
of
picture.
course, you know, the first thing, unless you don't want to take these steps, is just a polite conversation. If need be, call a lake ranger, we'll go out, we'll explain to them. I mean, it's, what he did is not necessarily illegal, but as you said, etiquette, that's just plain
It's an
rude.
etiquette, and that's what I was getting at about the whole conversation. You know, you were talking about dock etiquette, but there's boat etiquette, there's fisherman etiquette. You know, we're starting to see more kayaks on the lake, we're seeing paddle boards. I will commend some fishermen. The other day when one of the pop-up storms blew up, there was a kid coming by on a paddle board that didn't have a life jacket on. He was struggling. And I was trying to get my pontoon unhooked to get out there to get to him with the waves and everything. And a fisherman was coming down the cove, and we hollered at him, and they immediately went over to try to help the kid. So, kudos to them. But there's a lot of new people, I think, on the lake and the activity, and the etiquette is getting worse.
We can put out some articles, try to explain some different things, but of course, you know, if you have a problem, just call one of these guys, call one of the lake rangers. That's what they're here for. Even if it's not something that's necessarily illegal or a rule violation or something like that, these guys are very good at explaining, you know, hey, we need to share the resource with each other. Everybody needs respect and that sort of thing. And diffusing situations is kind of magical talent that we look for in our lake rangers. So absolutely give them a call. We'll do the best we can. If nothing else, at least, we'll get our piece in to let them know, hey, that's not okay. What you're doing is just plain rude.
And then last thing is, and I apologize for not knowing this, the marina, I believe the POA took over the marina operation on Loch Lomond this year. Who does that fall under?
It falls under the recreation division, but not lakes,
Okay.
Joan.
Okay. I'd like to visit with them. So is it Joan that I would visit with them?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
John, you should tell people how to call Lake Rangers.
Have you got that number handy, Bob?
I-
855-5148-5148.
I was actually going to,
From 7 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night.
I was actually going to suggest that we review how we get that out to people. I've used it. It works. These guys are great. But I had to find it, and it took effort, so.
Anybody else have anything to say? Sure, you can say whatever you need to say.
Ed is head of Fly Tires. We talk to our people. I'm sorry, I'm Steve Curtis. Ed is head of the Fly Tires, president of Fly Tires. Paul and Marv are on it. We talked to them this morning. I fished Windsor. I talked to 3 guys at the docks about the boats, and they all 3 said that people have been a lot more courteous lately. I know because we talked to our club, the people that I fish with on Tuesday and the people that fish on Wednesday have been talked to and asked to be particularly careful. And it's like this morning, I was fishing and a kayak, I didn't even hear him. Comes up the other side of me. And fine, I'll try not to catch him. But anyway, we are doing a better job, I think, as boats. But we need to make sure that we talk to people. And I'll talk to people when I'm on the lake if they have problems. Thank you.
Okay. Jerry?
Have him repeat the telephone number again.
It's 855-5148.
8.
So it's a good number to have in your cell phone and your contacts.
You
If
can
anybody.
also call the police, non-emergency.
Right. Okay. Anybody else? Did we get everybody over here? Okay. With that being said, Jason, welcome to the Lakes Committee. We look forward to having you on the committee and having your valuable input.
August 14th will be the next meeting.
August 14th, we meet the second Wednesday of the month at 2 p.m. at this location. Anybody else have any questions, concerns, or issues on anything that we talked about today or didn't talk about today?
Can I get a copy of that document that you're talking about?
Absolutely, yeah. I think we may have an extra copy. Do we have an extra copy, Tammy? Or I'll give him mine, because do you have a copy of that deal today that we gave out? Okay, we need one for Jason. Okay, with that being said, if nobody has anything else, meeting is adjourned. Huh? You can't? Really?